Welcome to Cohesive Friendship Unit. My name's Chris. I am here with Jeremy
What is up?
and Jake.
Hey guys.
We have a special review today. This review is, I believe, about 18 months in the making. This is our official review of Risk of Rain 2. It is now in the 1.0 state. It is no longer early access. It is a full game. But we have had tons of Risk of Rain 2 coverage up to this point, which you can check in our playlist. And we did actually, spoiler alert, give this our game of the year in 2019 when it was in early access, which you can also check out. That'll be linked. So yeah, if you like this video, please give us a like. Let us know down below what you think of Risk of Rain 2. And as always, if you love us, please sub us. So Risk of Rain 2 is a roguelite, and it is... you get to play as multiple characters, and it's multiplayer. But what about this roguelite, I guess, took us all by storm? Because I think between the group we have 800 hours in this game. So what is it that pulled us in with this one?
It had to be, besides the multiplayer, the third person. Like, it's extremely accessible when it comes to roguelikes, and it's multiplayer.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say. I mean, those are two big things. I think we all enjoy the roguelite genre, but it's not something you can often play with your friends. So just kind of by virtue of the genre, it's got excellent replayability. It has a huge amount of content, which is great, from the playable characters to the different types of items and pickups and stuff. Good map variety. Just got it all going on.
Right, so it's, like we said, it's a roguelite, it's multiplayer, there's multiple characters, and you're basically progressing, you're searching for a teleporter, and you are going through a certain number of stages before you hit a final boss, and then the game's over. But I think something that also makes Risk of Rain unique is the time mechanic, which I think we often forget is not usually a thing in roguelikes. But as time, the longer you play the game, the harder the game gets up to a certain point, and that I think adds a whole new kind of element, especially when you layer that on with playing with friends and stuff, as to what makes this game enjoyable. You're constantly doing time management, resource management, item management. You're constantly figuring out how long you should be devoting time to collecting resources and getting items and stuff like that.
Right, and the time aspect sounds kind of complicated. Like, if I was hearing this for the first time 200 hours ago, I would have been like, damn, that sounds really complicated and not that much fun. But as it turns out, it's actually pretty straightforward. They present it well. It makes a lot of sense. It's just, it makes sense for the genre, It encourages you to play faster, to optimize. Roguelikes are all about optimization, figuring out how to do things better, progressing in the quote overworld or so. So this is just another mechanic that lends it to that, while not making the game overly complicated.
Totally agreed. It's just very accessible and well integrated into the game, and another great reason, another layer of strategy, just something to influence how you approach the game on repeated playthroughs, which is another great thing to have in a multiplayer title.
So I think we've spent some time to talk about the kind of overview of the game. Do we have any thoughts on the visuals and the soundtrack and the graphics, the presentation? Because I think, at least for some of us here, the visuals put us off. I'll just lead off by saying that soundtrack is absolutely banging. I don't think there's a single song that I dislike in the soundtrack, which is kind of rare for a 3-person dev team.
Yeah, the soundtrack is great, although I must admit, I think Risk of Rain 1 has a better soundtrack.
Damn.
The visuals kind of put me off when I first saw it, which is kind of funny because I played the original Risk of Rain and I liked the visuals when it was still 2D. But once I got in the game, it was fine. I liked it. Something about the trailer kind of put me off. But once you play it, it makes sense. Like everything fits, it vibes, music is good. So I don't have any complaints on the visual style or the audio style.
I'm pretty sure that I ridiculed the visuals when Chris first like showed us the trailer. So I don't I don't think that they necessarily grab you in. They do look perhaps a little crude, but they are also like really colorful, and particularly like with the different levels. The levels have a lot of visual variety, which I think helps. I don't think it's a game that you really play for the visuals for the most part, but it's simple enough. Sometimes there's a lot of information on screen, but that's part of the game. Soundtrack totally bangs.
Yeah, soundtrack totally bangs. And yeah, you and Brian like refused to buy it initially.
Yeah, I did. It looks like an indie game, which it is. But I think that you may have to get past that a little bit if indie titles are not necessarily your jam. But it is well worth it.
So I think with especially people new to the genre, but even people who are experienced with it, I want to talk about the progression state. How do we progress? There's characters, there's items, and there are skins. And is that enough to kind of keep you hooked? I mean, I personally think that. So yeah, in general, overview of progression. You can unlock characters. They all have different unlock states. You can unlock skins. Those are a bit more straightforward. And you can unlock items, which are more or less random. You don't really have to worry. They just kind of happen. But to me, the unlocking is almost an afterthought. The skins are mostly what I'm there to unlock. Other than that, I think just the enjoyment of the game is what keeps me going and doing another run.
Yeah, for the most part, I would agree. Considering we all have like 200 plus hours in the game, and this was before they put in skins and a lot of the stuff you can unlock now. The challenges have always been there, but they're now tied to achievements, so I think there's a little more incentive to do those. I think we probably all have all the skins, but that took us quite a bit of time to get those unlocked. So I think there's plenty in this game to keep you entertained. Like I said, we have 200 plus hours. I'm sure you can get at least 100, 150 hours out of this game if you wanted to 100% this game, which would be kind of insane.
And also particularly thinking of it as a multiplayer experience, which is like almost purely how I've played it. There's plenty of content in terms of playing with your friends. Like you have the the initial thing of like you're already playing with your friends, having a good time, but you do have those couple challenges or unlocks there that you can add in if you are getting fairly good at the game. I also appreciate that like the unlocks are all very organic. It's not particularly with the characters. It's for the most part nothing too crazy, but there's enough challenge that it does make them interesting and original.
So Jake mentioned that we each have about 200 hours in the game. How difficult is the game? How punishing is the game? I think roguelites are usually known for being punishing, and is it too much? Are there good options? I think it's, for the genre, it's perfect.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we like I said, we have a lot of time in this, so we play in Monsoon, the highest difficulty, and we are still struggling with the ending of the game. So even for people that have a ton of hours and a ton of experience in the game, there's still a challenge. If you're new to the game, there's the options to start on Drizzle and Normal, and both of those will ease you in and give you enough playability, play hours to learn the game, keep progressing. So there's a lot of options. I think anyone can find a place in Risk of Rain 2.
Yeah. I mean, I consider myself not a particularly elite gamer, and I have won on hard many times, both on my own and with friends. And honestly, in terms of like, I'm probably coming up on 200 hours in game. Like, I kind of feel like that's appropriate. That, we are capable, but it's not just easy to beat the last boss. Like, I feel like that's where the difficulty curve should be for a game on the hardest difficulty setting. You don't want the hard difficulty to be, just so easy that you can do it right away. That's part of what keeps you, playing again and again and again.
All right. Yeah. So concerning difficulty, it always, to me, feels like your death is your fault. It's not the game, like, cheap one-shotting you. That does happen in the game. You can get one-shot in the game. But most of the deaths that I've experienced in the game, you can think back as to why it happened. And it was usually you, Risk of Rain. It's usually you taking a risk that you probably shouldn't have taken. At least the way I see it. A lot of the deaths that I experience in the game doesn't feel like a result of bad RNG for the most part or a bad run. I think it's usually pretty well... It's very rare that I think I have a garbage run to the point that I don't think I could complete the game given my skill, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think as you learn the game, you learn the importance of movement and how to essentially play better. But I think the multiplayer aspect makes a big difference as well. Because if I just get like absolutely sniped by a golem, and I think it's totally unfair, it's like, whatever. You guys are still around. You'll carry me through the round. I'll come back next round and it'll be fine. If it was solo, I would probably be a little more pissed. But at the same time, you know the rules. Once you start playing the game, you know how it works. And those are all just opportunities to figure out how to play better.
Yeah, totally agree with Jake. And in particular, like when we play multiplayer, sure, sometimes, individual team members die. Sometimes you just have bad luck and you just, you lose. But oftentimes, such to the point that we have a running joke about it, it's your own hubris, like in the game. Like we will say as we're doing something in game, like, here comes the hubris. And like very often we all die because we, as Chris said, took a risk that we probably shouldn't have taken. So the difficulty seems really fair.
Cool. And yeah, I just want to kind of allow us to say any more positive things before we shift on to negative things of the game that kind of stands out to us. I mean, to me, I'll just say, I think there's, for a small team, this game has tons of content. The items are interesting and varied. And the thing that I think really sets this game apart for me is the character variety is so thoughtfully developed, where each character really forces you to hone in on a mechanic of the game, whether it be movement, whether it be health management, whether it be tanking. There's the character variety is so well thought out in this game, and I look forward to the more characters that they come out with.
Totally agree. Just that the character variety, again, I'm about 200 hours in. There are only 3 characters probably that I feel somewhat competent at on hard, and there are, what are we at, 8 game characters in the game?
There's a decent chunk, yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a few characters to choose from. So if you're playing, that's something else you can keep coming back to. It's getting better and better at the characters. I know that's something you and Jake have been exploring as you guys have played. And again, just like so thoughtfully developed, so interesting and unique, and they all play differently. Characters are definitely a big standout.
Anything you need to add for positives, Jake?
This game, I have so many positives about this game, I don't really know what else to add.
Truly. It's really good.
I think we've been pretty generous this far.
Yeah.
And I guess we can, in our conclusions, we can give those on an individual basis, but let's shift to negatives for a little while. I'm not sure how long we'll even need here. The biggest negatives for me, a lot of them have been ironed out. We've been covering this game every major patch since it hit early access, and a lot of the negatives have been resolved. For me, honestly, the biggest thing that is missing here that is present in other roguelites that I actually use and find valuable is a seed input, where you can share seeds online or give your friend a seed. Like if you have a really cool run or a really hard run or a really interesting run, you'd be able to share that. And what's, I guess, miffing to me is that this already exists in their prismatic trials. They already have a working, kind of like, we have this seed and we're going to use the same seed for X amount of time. So it seems that's very reliable and repeatable. So it seems like something that they have working, and that's kind of like how roguelites work. So I don't really know why that's not in there. But that's I mean, honestly, probably my biggest criticism, other than there is definitely a character, I don't want to call it imbalance, but there are some characters that definitely seem much more viable than others at higher difficulties, and some loadouts seem much more viable, and it seems that that they don't really care about character balance, which is fine because it's their choice. But the way we play the game as a group of 4, where we usually have 4 unique characters instead of us all picking, loader or whatever, that I guess is a little it's just, I wish they cared a little bit more, and they do care, they do patch it, but I don't know, those are my 2 big things with the game.
Yeah, I'll say on the character balance, I think they did a good job of balancing it more than they have in the past for 1.0. I think the characters came out relatively well balanced, and I acknowledge the difficulty of trying to balance a character between single player and multiplayer, where it's a completely different animal. If you take Acrid, for example, one of the highest damage output characters in the game, he's technically balanced by being kind of risky without any sort of protection or overshield or anything. In multiplayer, it doesn't matter because you have 3 other people to take fire and tank things and protect you, whereas in single player, that's kind of balanced out. So I understand the difficulty in it, and I think the characters are in a decent state for 1.0. My only complaint for the game right now is some of the quote newer stages that were added in later on in early access. I'm not a fan of. They're very big, very spread out, very hard to navigate, and they've really favored people that have dashes and movement abilities, which really discourages you from playing characters that don't have those, like Multi and Commando and Artificer, who have a very hard time running around the map, and that hurts your run because, again, this is a time-based game.
I think you guys have made intelligent criticisms. I don't think there's much else negative to add. I mean, I said already that the visuals, they're maybe not gripping, but other than that, it's a very well-polished game. I don't have much else to say.
Cool. All right. Well, then, yeah, let's move on to our kind of closing thoughts on Risk of Rain 2. I mean, I'll just start by saying this is a really good game. It's a really good roguelite. I think if you're at all into the genre, and especially if you have friends in the genre, you should 100% buy this game. Buy it for your friends if they're like skeptical, like force them to try it. Super, super fun game. I mean, insane amount of replay, insane amount of hours, and it's something that I think we've all it's endured in time with us. We've put it down for time to pick up Halo, pick up other games together, and we still are able to fall right back into the fold and have a lot of fun with a couple runs. So I think it's an enduring game. I think we'll be playing it honestly for like years. I think there's a chance in 2024 that we boot it up and play a few runs. I think this is a really good game.
I agree. I think if you have friends that want to get this game with you, this is 100% buy it. It is 100% worth it. If you're going in as just a single player, you're still going to love this game. It's still going to be worth it. You may not be getting 100, 200 hours out of it, but this game still plays exceptionally well as a single player. Multiplayer with randoms, I would say, is not really worth it, but that's just my opinion. But this game is fantastic. It's hard to say that it's my favorite roguelike, but it's definitely up there in my top roguelites because it's so well done.
Yeah, just gotta echo my homies again. Like, just a terrific game. If you play online games with your friends, particularly if you play online games with your friends on PC, like you should just get it. Like, even if you don't like roguelikes or you haven't liked them in the past, it's a fairly unique game. I don't think it necessarily only because Brian isn't a huge roguelike fan, and he still really enjoys it. Has played hundreds of hours with us as well. So I think it can appeal to people who are coming from basically any background. It's just great. There's nothing else to say. It's just very good. We have lots of videos about it if you're curious.
Great. All right. I think that wraps up our 1.0 review of the game. And yeah, like Jeremy said, we have a ton of videos. This is going to be in a playlist of all of our Risk of Rain 2 content. We have content coming. I am trying my best to beat Mithrax on the hardest difficulty so I can make a guide about him. And then I'm sure there's going to be lots of other Risk of Rain 2 content as time goes on. But until then, I guess Brian's not here. He's usually the one who wraps up the videos. So yeah, if you liked the video, please throw us a like. Let us know down in the comments below what your thoughts are on Risk of Rain 2. And if you love us, sub us. That is all from me, guys. I will catch you next time.